a while since I talked about the Caped Crusader on this channel, so I thought, why not take a look back at his entire cinematic history? Batman has had a lot of movies over the past few decades, and as much as I would like to talk about other ones, there are simply too many, and I don't own all of them. Yet. Maybe someday I'll do another part to this ranking, where I rank the rest of the Batman movies that were released straight to home video. For this video, however, I will be going through every Batman movie that was given a theatrical release. And this does not include ensemble movies such as Justice League or The Flush. For it to count, Batman has to be the titular character or have a large focus in the movie's story. I was initially thinking about including Batman v Superman in the list, but then I thought, nah, I'd save it for another video. So this will be my first video covering movies, and if you are familiar with my channel, you know I usually talk about video games, but I want to talk about movies too. I'm still not fully sure how to approach transitioning from game reviews to movie reviews, but hey, let's wing it. Perhaps doing videos on movies will help my already inconsistent upload schedule. Or not. And no copyright law in the universe is gonna stop me! Oh, and as I go through each movie, I will try to discuss the story, characters, and cinematography. I will also rank each film's version of Batman, with certain criteria I will establish for what I believe makes for a good Batman. And no, I'm not copying the idea from another YouTuber. I'm doing this because I think it's fun. And because out of any characters in any form of mediums, Batman has probably gone through the most reboots and reinterpretations out of any fictional character in existence. Okay, maybe there are other fictional characters who have more reinterpretations than Batman, but Batman is undoubtedly one of the most well-known fictional characters to general audiences. Since this dude has been around since 1939, and has been in many comics, games, cartoons, lunchboxes, t-shirts, Lego sets, and of course the main topic of this video, movies. Batman's on-screen debut was actually in 1943, in the serial simply titled Batman, followed by another in 1949. From what I can tell, the 1943 Batman serial very much sticks out by today's standards, from the way the costumes are constructed to the fight choreography, and since it was filmed during World War II, it's very much a product of its time. 17 years after the 1949 serial, a series once again titled Batman would make its debut on ABC and Fox in January 1966. It starred Adam West as Batman and Burt Ward as Robin, and was a much campier take on the character, with the most outlandish scenarios that you could only get away with in a Mel Brooks film. The series became a huge success, further making Batman a household name, and it was around the time that color TVs were starting to become more popular. With the series being a big success, a movie based on the TV series was greenlit and announced 2 months after the first episode premiered, and then the film was released on July 30th, 1966. So basically, this film was announced, written, shot, edited, and then released in just 3 months. All while the series was still ongoing. That is nuts. Times sure have changed. Batman the movie would be Batman's first feature-length film, and the first film on this list to look at. So let's see how the Caped Crusader's first big screen adventure holds up. First off, this opening title sequence is stupid. I like it. Batman the movie is absolute nonsense. If you're familiar with the TV series, you will know that the show never tries to take itself seriously, and focuses on being dumb fun, and now you get to experience more of that in a feature-length adventure. Every outlandish nonsense that you would expect from the show is here. From the silly gadgets, everything being labeled, known criminals wearing masks, riding flying umbrellas, and comically giant bombs. Most of the cast from the show make an appearance, from Adam West to Burt Ward to Frank Gorshin to Burgess Meredith, to Cesar Romero. The actors behind the villains especially seem to have a lot of fun during their time on the show and the movie. Especially Cesar Romero's Joker, who admitted that playing the Joker brought him a lot of joy. And he had an absolute blast playing the character, despite not having any prior knowledge of the Batman comics. And it's so funny that he refused to shave his mustache, so they just decided to put the Joker makeup over it. The only one not to return for the movie is Julie Newmar as Catwoman, as she was busy with other projects, so Lee Merriweather took over as the second Catwoman in the series. Catwoman disguises herself as a journalist to aid the rest of the villain's plan to take over the world! And Bruce Wayne gullibly trusts her despite the fact that she looks exactly like Catwoman. Or close enough, I guess. I guess the actress change was a genius move after all. But Batman and Robin see right through Penguin's disguise at one point in the movie. Batman in this movie is either the smartest person in the room, or he is as dumb as the rest of the characters. Like the Admiral in the Pentagon was so gullible enough to sell a fully functioning Warcraft submarine to a guy supposedly named P.N. Gwyn, and didn't even leave an address but just a post office box number. If the name Penguin wasn't a dead giveaway, the fact that he didn't leave an address should have raised suspicion. But that's just the kind of shit that this universe gets away with. You're not supposed to take it seriously. You're just supposed to turn your brain off and accept this outlandish scenario as it is. And with their newly acquired submarine, the villain's plan to take over the world is to, get this, their plan is to kidnap the United World Organization's Security Council, dehydrate them, and hold them ransom for $1 billion each. That's $9 billion. Nowadays, that kind of money would be equivalent to around $87 billion. Anyway, Batman and Robin put a stop to that plan in yet another goofy fight sequence, and almost everyone gets shoved into the water in this fight. It's so stupid, but I love it. And I like how the water doesn't even wash off Joker's makeup. And get this, Catwoman is defeated by tripping. Yeah, that's literally how she goes down. And Batman realizes that he has been catfished. So everything ends up working out in the end, and Batman and Robin leave the building as the credits roll. Yeah, this kinda just ends as an episode of the show would. So Batman the movie. Its humor and production quality sticks out heavily by today's standards, but if you enjoy the dumb, goofy nature of the show, and other movies with that kind of nature like Mel Brooks movies, you'll find some enjoyment in this one, as this is essentially an extended episode of the show. As a kid, I could not sit through this movie. Now as an adult, I can appreciate it and the show for what they were back in the day. Just dumb, lighthearted, campy goofiness, that while it's not what we expect from Batman content nowadays, it's enjoyable to look back on. I will give the movie a B tier. And now to rank our first Batman, the one and only legendary Adam West. Also known for his role in Family Guy, where he played a parody version of himself.
No! You gave me Canadian bacon instead of bacon? This misdeed cannot go unpunished. Pizza delivery man, prepare to meet your maker at the hands of my cat launcher.
I will be ranking each Batman using a list of criteria for which I believe are essential for making a good version of Batman. And no, I'm not trying to copy the idea from another YouTuber. I'm doing it because I want to do it and I think it's fun. Especially since each actor brings their own take on Batman and aspects of the character that I look for in a good Batman. And in the context of this universe, Adam West's take on Batman is quite good. As I've stated many times, the 1960s Batman universe is quite outlandish, and Adam West just plays almost every situation so straightly, which just adds to the humor of the movie and the show. And his Batman solves Riddler's puzzles with the most convoluted clues and answers. As questionable as this Batman's detective skills are, he is at least very competent. And as goofy as most of his fight scenes are, and as much as he keeps getting captured throughout the show, he always at least ends up coming out on top afterwards. As for his batsuit, it looks very goofy, but it gets points for being iconic, and it was probably the most well-constructed batsuit for its time, as the old batsuits from the 40s serials would fall apart very easily. The 60s batsuit was designed after Batman's appearance in the comics, during the time where he had the blue and grey bodysuit with the short ears and the iconic bat logo with the yellow oval. And I like how they just straight up drew the eyebrows and nose onto the face of the cowl. And I guess the fact that the eye makeup wasn't used yet allowed Adam West to show more expressions unique to his Batman. So yeah, while his bright and colorful batsuit might not strike fear into the hearts of criminals, it is iconic and I have a soft spot for it. This movie also introduces more Bat vehicles not shown in the show. The Batcycle, Batcopter, and Batboat. I quite like the Batboat's design. And of course there's the iconic Batmobile, featured in many episodes of the show. Batman has also got his usual bat rope that he uses to climb up the buildings, and a bunch of other gadgets like the infamous shark repellent, the Bat toolbox, the Bat torpedo launcher, and the Bat disruptor that runs on batteries?
Confound it! The batteries are dead!
When a friend and I watched this movie for the first time years ago, we straight up turned the movie off at that moment, as this was just too much for us. Nowadays, I laugh my ass off at how perfectly stupid this scene is. And this Batman follows his most important rule pretty well, and that is of course the no killing rule. In fact, Batman and Robin's only kills in this entire movie are two indirect kills on these two goons. When the Penguin dehydrates them and then rehydrates them, but Batman and Robin kick them, which causes them to disintegrate into nothing. And they instantly feel regret after realizing that the goons weren't coming back to life. So 60s Batman gets a pass on the no killing rule. He's not perfect, but he at least tries. But Batman is not the only part of, well, Batman. An actor should not only show a good Batman, but also a good Bruce Wayne. And sadly, I gotta be honest, Adam West's Bruce Wayne doesn't really have much going for him. I mean, he does a good enough job distinguishing the two personas, as Bruce is a more cheerful and mild-mannered guy, which I guess does work in the context of this universe. And the scene in the show where Batman and Bruce Wayne are talking to each other is one of the best scenes in the show, as Adam West sounds more chill and relaxed as Bruce Wayne, and more focused and determined as Batman. But I don't know, other than that, 60s Bruce Wayne doesn't really seem to have much going for him until he puts on the suit. But I do still think Adam West is at least a decent Bruce Wayne. And again, I do like how he actually changes his voice tone and attitude when he's changing between the two. It's just more that Bruce doesn't really seem to have much to do throughout the show or the movie. But despite all that, I'll give Adam West's Batman an A. I love how straightly he plays every situation, adding to the humor of the show and movie, and the guy is a legend among the history of television. Rest in peace, Adam West.
I guess I told him, nobody messes with Adam Wee.
Batman, which I will call Batman 89 as many other Batman fans call it, was a massive success. After the first few Superman movies set the bar for comic book movies, and how much they pushed the limits for filmmaking at the time, WB and DC became interested in rejuvenating the Batman franchise. And this time, they wanted to treat the character more seriously, and break away from the campy nature that Batman was remembered for at the time. This time, they were gonna make it a dark and gritty crime drama that would do the Batman character justice. Oh, but that didn't stop them from merchandising the fuck out of this movie. By 1989, there were Batman logo t-shirts and posters everywhere. This movie's cultural impact was absolutely insane. Because not only was the movie a huge hit, the merchandise sold like crazy. Tim Burton was brought on to direct this one, with Michael Keaton casted as Batman, both fresh off of Beetlejuice, which raised some skepticism at the time. But the big question is Does it really do the character of Batman and his world justice? Is this finally the definitive take on the character? And the short answer is no. Don't get me wrong, this movie's cultural impact and influence on future Batman and other superhero movies is undeniable. And this movie is the sole reason as to Batman's character being redefined to the way he is seen nowadays. But when it comes to being the absolute definitive Batman movie, we're not quite there just yet. First off, this movie does get a lot of things right. I love the way Gotham City looks in the Burtonverse. It looks like an absolute shithole, with litter and garbage bags everywhere. And the buildings are ridiculously large with Gothic architecture, which is to be expected from a Tim Burton flick. Burton's direction style really suits Gotham City down to the ground, as it's supposed to look distinct from your average city you'd find in the real world. Our main villain is Jack Nicholson as the Joker, and he's not quite chaotic as Cesar Romero's Joker, but he does a great job. Joker in this movie is actually established as a gangster, and even before he becomes the Joker, he already kinda acts like the Joker. He acts like an asshole before and after his little dip in the pool. He just becomes even crazier after his boss set him up for sleeping with his wife. Yep, that is literally part of the Joker's backstory in this movie. Essentially, the Joker's main character trait and driving motivation in this movie is that he's an attention seeker who loves Prince music. And he gets jealous of Batman for supposedly stealing his spotlight. Okay, it works I guess, but I've seen Joker written better in other Batman stories. Oh, and he has a crush on a reporter named Vicky Vale who has a crush on Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne in this movie is essentially kind of a weirdo, who surprisingly has his funny moments. I do like how in the opening of the movie, Batman is already established, and some criminals are actually scared of him, while others are skeptical of his existence. And the fight scenes are pretty well choreographed, despite Michael Keaton probably having the most restrictive batsuit out of any Batman actor. Batman's backstory is pretty much the focus of this movie, as it's presented as a mystery on why this rich weirdo dresses as a bat and fights criminals. But nowadays, pretty much anyone familiar with Batman knows his backstory where his parents are killed by Joe Chill in Crime Alley. But considering that this was the first movie to really take Batman seriously, I'll let it slide for this one. You really gotta watch it with the mindset of Batman's backstory being a mystery to truly appreciate it. But making the Joker Batman's parents' killer really felt forced. And apparently it was. As Tim Burton wanted this from the start, I guess it serves as a way to tie Batman to Joker, but I don't know. I felt it was kind of unnecessary. But nonetheless, for what this movie is trying to do with building towards the mystery of Bruce's backstory, I think it's executed pretty well. But there is one major issue I have with this movie, which comes into play in the third act. This Batman kills. Many people have said it before, and I will say it as well. Batman does not kill! And Keaton Batman's kill count in the third act is unfortunately way too high. He blows up a chemical factory full of Joker's goons, he shoots down more of Joker's goons in the Batwing, tosses a goon down from a bell tower, and straight up kills the Joker by sticking a statue to his ankle, making him fall to his death. He literally enacts revenge on the guy who killed his parents. That is not Batman. Batman is not defined by revenge. Batman is defined by his unwillingness to take a life, and his determination to save the lives of everyone he can. Whether they're civilians or criminals, Batman always tries his hardest to save anyone he can. And this movie completely misses the point of that. And unfortunately, this Batman's death toll just keeps piling up in the sequel. So because of this third act, I cannot rank this movie as one of my favorite Batman movies. But it is undeniably an important one, and it's still a pretty well made film. And while it may have fumbled here and there, it still got a lot of things right, and it helped rejuvenate Batman's character and world in the eyes of the general audience. so I still gotta give it credit for that. Because without this movie, Batman would probably still be seen as campy and goofy like in the 60s. And Danny Elfman's soundtrack is still pretty much very well known as the Batman soundtrack. As someone who played the LEGO Batman games as a kid, I can agree. So I would say, while Batman 89 is not a great Batman movie, it is a really good film, and overall an important one in the Dark Knight's history. So I will give this movie a B tier. Now let's see how its sequel fares up. With Batman 89 being a massive box office and merchandising success, WB immediately got Burton to do a sequel, and this one is set during Christmas. Batman in a winter holiday setting always feels right for some reason. However, Tim Burton would pour more of his personality and directing choices into this one, but that would not stop WB from trying to merchandise this movie and squeeze as much dough out of it as possible. They clearly wanted this movie to be a bigger success than the first, which is nothing out of the ordinary. Naturally, you want your second movie to be a bigger success than the first. However, WB's efforts to market the film would end up hurting Batman Returns in the long run. Again, Tim Burton was sticking to his guns and keeping his artistic integrity for Batman Returns. He doubled down on the dark tone, the violence, and adult references. And Warner Bros. Efforts to merchandise the movie with toys and McDonald's collaborations ended up tricking parents into thinking this would be a fun family movie they could bring the kids to. Yeah, because Batman 89 was totally made for kids. McDonald's even ended up seizing all their Batman Returns promotion material and apologizing for not knowing how dark the movie actually was. Batman Returns corrupts the youth. Our rogues this time are the Penguin played by Danny DeVito and Catwoman portrayed by Michelle Pfeiffer. The Penguin in this movie is a humanoid penguin man who is straight up thrown into the sewers as a child and raised by actual penguins. That must have scarred the parents for life watching that in the theater after a nice dinner at McDonald's. When we meet the Penguin in the present day, he has been living in the sewers all his life and runs a circus gang, and he is somehow funnier and wilder than the Joker? How is that the case? And his desire is to become the mayor of Gotham City by overthrowing the current mayor. He tasks his circus gang to wreak havoc and make the current mayor look like he can't get off his high horse. And to secure his place in the office, he decides to frame Batman as a criminal. And he gets help from a corrupt businessman named Max Schreck, CEO of Somebody Wants to Be the World! And he is the boss of our other villain, Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman, whom he catches snooping around in his office and retaliates by committing first-degree murder. And I joke you not, Selina gets bitten by a bunch of cats, and suddenly she lives, goes apeshit, wrecks her apartment, and becomes Catwoman. Are those cats radioactive or something? And when Catwoman meets Batman for the first time, he's more gullible than he was in the last movie. If there is one thing that Batman should not be, it's being easily fooled. And Catwoman catches him off guard multiple times.
How could you? I'm a woman.
I'm sorry, I...
Cause you had a bad day, you take everyone down.
I'm gonna say it, Brave and the Bold Batman is better.
You wouldn't hit a lady, would you?
The hammer of justice is unisex.
Catwoman and the Penguin then decide to team up and frame Batman for kidnapping and killing a civilian, and the Penguin takes control of the Batmobile to frame Batman for reckless driving. And he controls it with one of those kiddie rides designed like the Batmobile. It's so stupid. I like it. However, Batman takes this opportunity to record him and eventually expose him for his true intentions. The Penguin's plans go down the drain along with himself, so he decides to retaliate by kidnapping every firstborn child in a fucking circus train car. Definitely a movie made for kids. And of course, Batman foils this plan. So Penguin says, screw it, I'm gonna blow up the city. by strapping missiles onto his little penguins. What the fuck is this movie? And Batman stops him with a frickin' radio frequency. Are we sure this is not 60s Batman logic we're dealing with? Oh, and Batman and Catwoman have a crush on each other. Yep, Vicky Vale is pretty much gone. The two begin seeing each other as Bruce and Selina, not knowing who each other are. And they finally figure it out near the end of the movie. It took them long enough. Bruce tries to talk Selina out of killing her boss, and before he pulls his mask off, in front of Shrek! And they remove his eye makeup. It's really weird when you look at it. But then again, they probably didn't want any parallels between Batman and Beetlejuice. Shrek shoots Batman, knocking him out, and attempts to kill Catwoman, who is somehow more bulletproof than Batman. She takes not one, but 4 fucking shots, and is still able to stand. How? Her suit is absolutely destroyed by the end of the movie. And Batman is supposed to be wearing body armor as the last movie established. Why does Batman always seem to suck against bullets? And Batman doesn't even do much fighting in the third act. Penguin just dies from being thrown out of a window by a bunch of bats. And Catwoman gives Shrek an electrifying kiss, and he dies. And Batman just stands there and watches it happen. What the fuck, Batman? Do something! Not only is Batman more of an idiot in this movie, he also loses fights way too easily. As I said, Catwoman catches him off guard multiple times, and he looks even goofier when he's fighting. That restrictive suit really does make it harder to believe that this guy was trained in all forms of combat. So overall, this movie was a lot more on the weirder and wild side. And you can tell it has a lot more of Tim Burton's unique personality. And Batman being dumber in this movie really does make the movie look bad. Because you don't want your protagonist to be dumb unless you have a good reason for doing so. But does that make it a bad movie overall? I would say no. I wouldn't say it's great, but it's still a fine enough follow-up to the first. I do like the weird and chaotic nature of the film. And the Penguin and Catwoman were better than the Joker in the last movie. Not to say that Jack Nicholson did a bad job, but still. I think that the best way to describe this movie is that the villains are better, but Batman is worse. So we're not quite there yet at getting the perfect Batman movie. Again, still an alright movie, but not quite a great Batman movie. I will give it the C tier. Now to rank Michael Keaton's take on Batman. Overall, I would say that his character started off pretty cool in the first one, even though he was fine with blowing up a factory and gunning down goons in his Batwing. I would still say that Keaton's Batman was a pretty good protagonist for the first movie, and he was still reasonably good in his fight scenes despite the Batsuit. In Returns, however, he took a few hits in terms of his competence. His fight scenes look more ridiculous. Like, seriously, 60s Batman's fight scenes look better than Returns. And this Batman doesn't seem as smart as he was in '89, as he makes a lot more dumber decisions and is caught off guard more easily. So he's definitely lost a lot of his cool factor. As for his gear, he does at least have a lot of cool stuff. The Batmobile is pretty much the most iconic one we've seen in live action, as its design is the closest to what we expect the Batmobile to look like. It's sleek, stylish, the turbine engine in the front is cool, and it's got a lot of neat tricks, such as straight up breaking its sides off to fit through tight spaces. And it looks so silly when it's driving in rocket mode, because it looks like it's about to fall over. I love it. And I love how the Batwing is straight up shaped like a bat. And the Batboat is cool too. And the 1989 movie introduced my favorite gadget out of any other gadgets in Batman's arsenal. The grappling gun. Or as it's called in this movie, the spear gun. I like how his utility belt has a mechanism that gives him the gadget whenever he needs it. And I just fucking love the grappling gun for its versatility. Batman can use it to grapple up buildings or yank foes over to him.
Get over here!
It's for that reason that it is a staple gadget in any Batman's arsenal. along with the Batarang. Speaking of which, the Batarang is alright, I guess. The remote controlled one is cool until a dog snatches it. This Batman also has the smoke pellets, although he only uses them once. He's also got the line launcher, which has a slimmer model in Returns, and a cool little hand shield. Overall, I think this Batman is pretty well equipped. His suits, on the other hand, while they do look more opposing than the 60s Batsuit, they were a lot more restrictive. Michael Keaton couldn't even turn his head since the cowl was a large piece that extended down to the shoulders, and he even had to have help getting out of the Batmobile. The suit may look cool at a first glance, but that's until Batman has to move around too much. As for Keaton's Bruce Wayne, I think he does a good enough job. I like how his Bruce is essentially a weirdo who has his funny moments. But while his Batman was pretty cool and intimidating in '89, his character took a few hits in competence in Returns. And of course, this Batman does not follow the most important rule, the no killing rule. I already went over his death toll in '89, and in the first few minutes of Returns, he burns 3 guys alive, one with the Batmobile's afterburner, and shoves a bomb down this dude's pants and throws him down a manhole. These two Batman movies just completely ignore the no-kill rule. This is the one aspect of the character that for some reason, most writers for live-action Batman do not seem to fully understand. In most live-action Batman movies, Batman always ends up killing at least one person. I may have let it slide for 60s Batman, but again, it was an indirect kill, and he and Robin at least felt regret. But none of the other Batmen are getting off that easy. If you think that Batman should just kill his enemies, then I'm sorry, but no! You do not understand Batman's character one bit at all. Every fictional character has a defining trait or two that should not be changed unless you have a very good reason to do so. And Batman's no-killing rule is an integral part of his character that should not be ignored under any circumstances. And even though this was 1989, Batman's willingness to never take a life was already well established in the comics by then, including stories like A Death in the Family, where after the Joker kills Jason Todd, Batman actually contemplates whether he should kill the Joker or not. And of course he ends up not doing it, but still. And if you want to see an anti-hero who kills people, go watch Punisher or John Wick or Deadpool, you imbeciles. However, while I have not watched the movie for obvious reasons, I will compliment the Flash movie for making Keaton's comeback as his version of the Caped Crusader the best part of the movie, and restoring his character's coolness and competence that was lost in Returns. Unlike the first two Tim Burton movies, Keaton's Batman fights like an absolute beast, and mops the floor with all of these highly trained soldiers. It's like watching a live-action Arkham fight scene. And the improved fight choreography is all thanks to his new Batsuit being fully flexible. And it's fully bulletproof! It looks like this Batman has learned from his mistakes. And his Batarangs are even deadlier than before. And he's even got a freaking measuring tape. Okay, that's it. All future versions of Batman have to have this important and useful gadget from now on. This movie pretty much brings Michael Keaton's version of Batman from a C tier to a B tier. So yeah, good job, Flash movie. That's the only praise you're ever gonna get from me. So that about covers part 1 of this retrospective. I was initially thinking about making this entire retrospective 2 parts, but due to how long this part already is, I've decided that covering 3 movies per video would do. So this retrospective will be split into 4 parts. And also because I just want to get a video out at this point. So tune in next time when I take a look at the Joel Schumacher era of Batman movies. And who knows, I may also cover another special movie in that video. So anyways, I'm definitely having a lot of fun with this retrospective so far, so I hope you look forward to the next few parts. Tune in next time for part 2 when I take a look at the rest of the Batman movies from the 90s. Same bat time, same bat channel.